The other thing that really resonated with me was that there's no like shortage of these kind of stories coming, and reports coming out about religious leaders in our country. It's like a regular thing that you don't see in mainstream media. And that was really striking to me this week as I was like looking. I was just like, this is next door to me, like, and no surprise. I mean, the Haven is right there in Tennessee, and I get it, but still, it's just
and not just in our society. This is a constant thing through history where religious leaders take advantage of their authority to exploit their congregants. It happens all the time, and it always happens. That's it. That's the part that gets me. That why aren't people more suspicious of this? If someone is telling you that I have a direct line to God or a better line than you do, you should be incredibly suspicious of that person, right?
Which is like not, I don't think, a normal thing in most people's churches, but that very much is the thing in these extreme IFB churches and fundamentalists. Like it is kind of the vibe. So I wanted to distinguish the two, but
Oh, I don't. And I'll tell you.
I know you don't, but I do.
But I'm correct here. Now, this is why, because it's not just fundamentalist, though, right? It's like
okay, but
liberal.
But we are here to create a healing space for our survivors, our IFB survivors.
Right. I give all the grace in the world to believers and IFB survivors. I feel for you. No, I feel for you. I understand. Listen, I understand the difficulty and the emotional damage and trauma. I get it all, but I'm not going to lie to you. Okay, that is where I draw the line. I'm not going to do it. And it's it's worse than a fundamental hour. It is definitely worse because you grant all that power and authority to that figure. And the more fundamentalist you are, the more likely you are to fall in line with this. But like Catholic churches are not fundamentalist, like at all. Catholic churches, and I mean, last I checked, the Catholic Church had a pretty big problem with priests, using their authority to harm their congregants. Yeah, and so that's why it's like, it's part of the fundamentalist church. But I think I don't think
that's what was striking to me that I didn't articulate better, though. So I guess that to your point, I do kind of agree. This is still so, just like not discussed super often, and whereas we joke about Catholics, that's not a joke. It's not okay, but it's like common knowledge, or to some degree that happened. That's part of the history.
Yeah. It's like prison rape. People just joke about it, like, isn't that funny? It just happens, right? And it's like, whoa, no,
are we allowed to say that on YouTube?
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's kind of an issue, right? I once again, something I didn't notice either until I don't know if you saw this, Kayla. It may have been, but there was a show on MSNBC years ago called Lock Up Raw, and it was they would take
like
cameras
cops or in jail.
Prison.
Oh
yeah,
God.
they would go around recording the prisoners and interviewing them and asking them what life is like. A fascinating show. What I remember most of it was what they were able. I saw the most creative shit that you could possibly imagine on this, because when you're sitting in a cell 23 hours, you got nothing but time, and they come up with some amazingly creative stuff. But they talked about the prison rape culture and everything, and how it was important to get with friends immediately or to join a gang to protect yourself and everything. And then they did one in, I forget where. I want to say Sweden. I think they did a prison show there. And they're like, yeah, that prison rape thing.
Wolfie.
Yeah, I know. He's a
hi, my dude.
People demand the Wolfie. And they asked them about that, and they said, yeah, that prison rape thing isn't a reality here. Like you don't go to prison to being terrified of being raped. That's not how it happens. And they structure it differently because the focus isn't on.
Oh, in Sweden. I was like, wait a minute. This is not in America. Yes, they do.
Right. Yeah.
Sweden.
Yeah, and because they focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment. And the prisoners have stuff to do. They're always in school. They're always learning a trade. that they're not treated like animals in zoos and locked up the entire time to learn their lesson. No, it's like you're going to get out of here eventually, and we want you to have some sort of skill, some sort of psychological counseling. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of like the prison rape thing with the Catholic Church. And what I would say is, I can't remember the actual case, there's been so many of them, but where they uncovered at least 800 separate instances of the Catholic Church since the 1950s abusing children and having the priest moved by the bishop to cover it up, just to get them out of there.
The same thing that we see in IFB and fundamentalist cultures.
Yes. And what I said is, if we found out that, I don't know, Target had done this, that Target had all these workers or managers who abuse kids, and then district just moved them around.
We would boycott Target. We would never go.
Target would cease to exist tomorrow fucking morning. It would
get destroyed.
Yes, but the church does it. Oh, well, hey, what are you going to do? Or check this out. If we found out that a group of mosques had done this, it would be a 5-alarm fire throughout the entire nation. Wow, these Muslims are raping children. But, the Catholic Church did it. It happens all the time in fundamentalist churches, and it just keeps going on. No one thinks about it. I don't know. That's why it's like, it is just a pervasive thing that, or whenever you have someone who puts themselves in that type of position of authority over your thoughts, over your emotions, over your soul, like you mentioned, you're going to trust that person, and you're going to extend the level of respect to them that is unearned by any person. So I'm not a big fan of that. I respect people, but not because they happen to be preachers. That's all I got to say. And I forgot to mention this when we were talking about people abusing authority. The one group of people who are absolutely worse than pastors when it comes to this are anybody who starts a cult. Anybody who starts like a cult where, hey, I'm going to take, 10 or 12 people. We're going to go live in the woods or go live in this commune or something like that. It's always about raping people. Always. It always comes down to that. And you'll see these videos of how they brainwash these people to such an extent that like they willingly do it. They say, oh, yeah, you want to have sex with my wife. Go ahead. It's cool. And she's like, yeah, I'm fine with it, too. And then the kids are always up next. It happens all the time. So I joke about youth pastors and everything. Like a lot of these folks, listen, okay, how can I put this?
How can I put this?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out a delicate way to say this, but as someone who is a narcissistic asshole, like someone who just craves the power and the attention that's given by being an authority figure or having a voice that people listen to, I know how these folks think. I know how they think. Okay. And if you
that was so dark for a second.
No, it's like
I liked it. I mean, that was cool.
Right. I know.
I get it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know.
No, I mean,
too. And so there are healthy ways to channel that type of personality, and exactly. there are sinister ways to channel it. And the sinister way is to start a cult, or is to
don't start cults.
Don't start, or be a pastor. Listen, like,
or to slide your cult into mainstream religion. That's how I feel about it.
Well, I feel the same way.
They're hiding in plain sight, especially with the title, everything. I don't know.
Well, I don't feel radically different about leaders of mainstream religion. I don't, because I see the psychological manipulation and the illusions of grandeur that come along with it. I mean, listen, like, who the fuck do you think you are? I've said it before. I'll say it again. I would really like to believe that there's like a lot of churches out there that are just people being together and believing in the same thing and believing in it. I like to do for them. Right. I guess I don't want to overstep it here and say that every pastor is some it's hard word to say, some egomaniac, that's an easier word, and who only has dark thoughts and evil intentions. Of course, yeah, that's not true. But I am always suspicious. Same with youth pastors.
I am always suspicious. I'm with you there.
I'm always suspicious. I'm suspicious of a lot more people. Look up. In fact, Kayla, hold on. Let's do a little break here. Hold on. Let me see if my intuitions are correct. They always are.
They always are.
They always are. They rarely let me down. Oh,
you've proven that to be true.
And they didn't this time either, of course. I don't know why.
What you got?
I don't know why I bother even asking sometimes. Let's see. I can pull this bad boy up here. I hate how many ads. The internet is just unusable. Like, you remember when the internet used to be fun? You used to hop on the internet and there was like 40 different websites you go play around. And everyone goes to the same 3 websites, and then or the same 3 apps. And no one at web surfing used to be an actual. Oh, what am I doing here? Okay, hold on. But
now code our MySpace profile pages.
Yes, it was fun, right? And now it's I guess I'll open TikTok. I guess I'll open Google or YouTube, or that's it. And that only a couple apps we use.
I'll bounce back and forth between them.
Right? Yeah, and it's just and now whenever you go to an actual website, it's just filled with ads all over the place and it's unreadable. But okay, so these are. In the Forbes magazine, the top 10 jobs that attract psychopaths. So,
let me see this list.
All right. So,
wow.
Wait.
Wow, media number 3. Wow.
All right. So number 1 is CEO. No shock there. See, I hate this ad here. Right? Like it just throws off the entire thing. 2 is lawyer.
The aesthetic of it.
Right. 3 is media. And listen, I mean, that's what I say all the time. Like, and then sales, you have got to be a stone cold psychopath to love sales. Sales pays a lot because it takes a certain person to ever actually do this. Like going up to people and begging them to buy a product, lying to them if you have to, being told no 99 straight times, just hoping for that one yes. No, that's just.
Okay, well. You'll appreciate this as a fellow Scorpio and who's someone who had just ranted about having narcissistic tendencies, which we have talked about having that shared trait in the past. I spent most of my career in retail sales, and I was one of the best. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, that was why I got to go to Boston. That's why I've gotten to go to so many places that I've been. I was there with them in Kansas City, Dallas, but.
Your Honor, the defense rests.
You might be on to something.
Yeah. But you know what I'm talking about. That a lot of people cannot do that. Like their ego can't handle it, or their feelings, because essentially you have to turn off that human emotion of being terrified of rejection, because it's going to happen all the time. And if you can do that, then you're going to crush it in sales. But most people
you have to tell me no 3 times. That's like what a general, I feel like everyone knows that in sales. Like the first 2 no's were like they didn't really mean it. Like,
they didn't mean
3 no's.
Yeah. No does not always mean no. We all
before you back up.
Yeah, I knew a guy who I was in the Army with, and he ended up going into pharmaceutical sales. And I was telling him how that's just how awful that would be and everything, like going to these doctors and asking them to buy pharmaceutical equipment. And it's like, you want to buy this? And he says no. And he says, They tell me to eat shit, and I come back the next day with a shit-eating grin, just waiting for them to buy that shit and everything. So yeah, you got to be able to do that kind of shit. All right, so surgeon. Obviously, surgeons are wildly known for this, because you essentially have to treat human bodies like cars. You just slice them open and tear them apart. You kind of have that tendency. Journalist, police officer, clergy. Clergy, number 8. Number 8 is clergy. That job attracts a ton of psychopaths. Chefs, which I wouldn't have guessed if they didn't have these TV shows about chefs and how wild and insane.
That feels so random to me too.
Yeah. But I think of every chef show I've watched, they do seem pretty psychopathic.
Like intense.
Yeah. And then civil servant. Civil servant, I believe, because a lot of civil servants are prior military, and I can kind of see that. But yeah, anyway, my suspicion was that clergy member was on there because, I remember, I'm going way off track. We only covered one guy. It's been 37 minutes, so I'm sorry, Kayla. But I remember when I realized this about myself. And listen, folks, that's important here. You have to know who you are. Know your strengths. That's pretty easy.
True.
Right. You figure out your strengths pretty early on, but knowing your weaknesses is just as important. And knowing
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Knowing your character flaws and how they coincide. So I remember when I first realized about my massive ego and everything. It's when I was in college and I was giving a speech to the student body. And I don't remember what it was for. It doesn't matter. But I remember talking and I raised my hand to do something. And then I moved my hand and I saw 1,000 heads follow my hand. I was like, whoa, It hit me. I was like, wow, the feeling. I still remember that feeling. I loved it. I fucking loved it. And then, but I thought about it and I was like, well, why did I like that so much? Because yeah, if you put your hand in front of somebody and move it, they're going to move it. That's not, all that weird. But then I thought about it. What that showed was not only were they in front of me, they were actually paying attention to what I said. All of them. They because you've been in audience before, you said you're not giving a shit what the speaker says. I moved it and they thought, oh, they were captivated by what I was saying. And it's like, man, you have that kind of power just in moving your hand. Imagine what else you could do. And so that's how these folks are. These folks who are attracted to like these large crowds.
So just for context.
Just for context, yeah. If I decided to use my powers for evil, I mean, I'd be an Avengers level threat. Like it would be a bad time, okay? Yes. If you yeah, so that's why I don't trust these folks because I'm too much like them.